Britain was in ruins, King Uther was dead, no heir, no peace, chaos reigned, warlords battled for scraps, the people despaired, hope seemed lost. A darkness had fallen upon the land, it felt like it would never end. In the heart of Britain, a stone stood silent, an anvil, a sword embedded within it, a test, a message inscribed on the blade. Whoso pulleth this sword from this stone is rightwise king born of all England. Knights from across the land came to try their luck. They all failed, the sword would not budge.
One day, a young boy named Arthur approached the stone. He was no warrior. He was squire to Sir Ector, his foster father. Unaware of his true lineage, he grasped the sword, pulled, and to everyone's astonishment it came free. Arthur, the unknown boy, had done what no knight could. He had drawn the magic sword. He was the rightful king.
In the heart of Britain, a stone stood silent, an anvil. It was no ordinary stone, for it held within it a secret that would change the fate of the entire kingdom. The stone was ancient, weathered by time, and surrounded by an air of mystery and magic. A sword embedded within it, a test. This sword was not just any sword, it was a symbol of power and destiny. It gleamed with an otherworldly light, hinting at the magic that bound it to the stone. A message inscribed on the blade: Whoso pulleth this sword from this stone is rightwise king born of all England. These words were a challenge, a call to the bravest and the noblest to prove their worth. Knights from across the land came to try their luck. They all failed. Each knight, no matter how strong or noble, found the sword immovable, as if it were part of the stone itself. The sword would not budge, it resisted every effort, every ounce of strength and every spell cast upon it. The stone and the sword seemed to mock those who tried, holding their secret tightly.
One day, a young boy named Arthur approached the stone. He was no warrior. Arthur was a humble squire, living a life of service and duty, unaware of the destiny that awaited him. He was squire to Sir Ector, his foster father. Arthur's days were filled with chores and training. Always in the shadow of knights and nobility, unaware of his true lineage, he grasped the sword, pulled. Arthur had no grand ambitions, no dreams of kingship. He simply saw a sword and felt compelled to try. And to everyone's astonishment, it came free. The crowd gasped, their disbelief turning to awe as they witnessed the impossible. Arthur, the unknown boy, had done what no knight could. He stood there, the sword in his hand, a symbol of a new era. He had drawn the magic sword. The sword that had defied the mightiest of men now rested in the hands of a boy. He was the rightful king. Arthur's journey was just beginning, but in that moment, the kingdom knew they had found their true leader.
Arthur's coronation was a joyous occasion. People cheered. They saw hope in their young king. Arthur, though, was unsure. He felt the weight of the crown. He needed guidance.
He found it in Merlin, a wise and powerful wizard. Merlin became Arthur's advisor. He taught him the ways of magic and leadership. With Merlin's help, Arthur began his reign. He united the kingdoms, he established peace, he brought justice to the land.
The sword from the stone was magical, but it was not meant for Arthur. It was a symbol, not his true weapon. Merlin knew this. He led Arthur to a lake, a mystical place shrouded in mist.
A hand emerged from the water. A beautiful, ethereal woman, the Lady of the Lake. She held a magnificent sword, Excalibur. She offered it to Arthur. "This blade is yours," she said. "Use it wisely." Excalibur was more than a weapon. It was a symbol of Arthur's right to rule, a gift from the other world, a bond between the king and the land.
Section 5. Knights of the Round Table. Arthur wanted his reign to be marked by justice and equality. He established the Knights of the Round Table, the bravest and most noble warriors in the land. They gathered at a round table. No head, no foot. All were equal in Arthur's eyes. The knights swore oaths to protect the weak, to uphold justice, to serve Arthur and Camelot. They rode out from Camelot, righting wrongs, defeating evil. Their stories became legend. Lancelot, Galahad, Gawain, heroes all. Section 6. The Shadow of Betrayal. But even in Camelot, darkness lurked. Morgana, Arthur's half-sister, plotted against him. She resented his power, his ideals, his very existence. She practiced dark magic, consorted with evil forces, her goal to see Arthur overthrown. Camelot in flames.
Camelot will burn. Arthur will fall.
Mordred, Arthur's illegitimate son, joined her. He too craved power. He felt cheated by Arthur, denied his birthright.
I deserve the throne. Arthur has denied me my destiny.
Together, Morgana and Mordred spun their web of deceit, whispering poison into the ears of knights, sowing seeds of discord in Camelot. The threat to Arthur's reign was real, and it came from within. Section 7. The Heart of a King. Arthur loved his kingdom, he loved his knights, he believed in them, he trusted them. His heart was filled with a deep sense of duty and honor. Every decision he made was for the betterment of his people, and he always put their needs above his own. His knights were not just his protectors, they were his brothers, his confidants, and his closest allies. This trust, this love, was his strength. It was the foundation upon which he built his reign. His unwavering belief in the goodness of his knights inspired loyalty and courage. They would follow him into the fiercest battles, knowing that their king believed in them wholeheartedly. But it was also his weakness. Arthur's heart, so full of love and trust, sometimes blinded him to the harsh realities of the world. He often overlooked the flaws and ambitions of those around him, believing that his love and trust could overcome any darkness. Arthur refused to see the darkness growing in his own court. He ignored the warnings from his advisors, choosing instead to believe in the inherent goodness of his people. He thought that by showing trust, he could inspire loyalty and righteousness. He wanted to believe in the good in everyone, even Morgana and Mordred, who harbored their own ambitions and resentments. Arthur's heart ached at the thought of betrayal, and he chose to see only the best in them, hoping that his love would be enough to keep them loyal.
I must believe in the goodness of my people. I must trust that they will do what is right, that they will stand by me as I have stood by them. This kingdom is built on trust and love, and I will not let doubt and suspicion tear it apart, even in my own family. I must believe that my blood, my kin, will remain true to me. For if I cannot trust my own family, then what hope do I have of trusting anyone else?
This blindness to the truth would cost him dearly. Arthur's refusal to see the darkness in his court allowed it to grow unchecked. His kingdom, once a beacon of hope and justice, began to crumble from within. His love for Guinevere, his queen, would also be tested. Their bond, once unbreakable, began to strain under the weight of secrets and lies. Guinevere, torn between her duty as queen and her own heart, found herself drawn to another. Lancelot, his bravest knight, and Guinevere fell in love, a forbidden love that neither could resist. Their passion, hidden in the shadows, threatened to destroy everything Arthur had worked so hard to build. A betrayal of Arthur's trust, the revelation of their love shattered Arthur's heart. The king, who had always believed in the goodness of his people, now faced the ultimate betrayal from those he loved the most. His kingdom, his knights, and his heart were all at risk of being lost forever. Section 8. The Poisoned Chalice.
Morgana saw her chance. She used the love triangle to her advantage. She turned Lancelot and Arthur against each other. She poisoned the hearts of other knights.
The Round Table, once a symbol of unity, began to crack. Arthur's reign began to crumble. He was forced to confront Lancelot, to battle his former friend, to punish his wife. His heart was breaking, his kingdom was falling apart. He was surrounded by enemies, but the worst were those he had once called family and friend. Section 9. The Clash of Blades.
The final battle was upon them. Mordred, fueled by ambition and hate, rallied an army against Arthur. He marched on Camelot.
Arthur, though wounded and betrayed, would not back down. He would defend his kingdom. He would fight for his ideals, even if it cost him everything.
The clash of steel echoed across the land. Arthur fought with the fury of a cornered lion. His knights fought bravely by his side, but the forces of darkness were strong. Many good knights fell. The battle raged for hours, neither side giving an inch. Section 10. The Fall of Camelot.
In the end, it was Arthur and Mordred, king and traitor, father and son, locked in mortal combat.
Arthur struck Mordred down, but not before Mordred delivered a fatal blow to Arthur. Arthur lay dying on the battlefield. His dream of a united and just kingdom shattered. Camelot, once a beacon of hope, was no more. The knights of the Round Table were scattered. The age of heroes had ended. Darkness had fallen upon the land once more. The legend of King Arthur seemed destined to fade into myth. Section 11. A legend endures. The tale of King Arthur is one that has been passed down through generations, a story that has captivated the hearts and minds of many. It is a legend that speaks of bravery, honor, and the mystical forces that shape our world. But Arthur was not gone, not entirely. As he lay dying on the battlefield, surrounded by the remnants of a fierce and brutal fight, his spirit remained unbroken. His body may have been failing, but his will was as strong as ever. He commanded Sir Bedivere, his loyal knight, to return Excalibur to the Lady of the Lake. Bedivere hesitated, his heart heavy with the weight of the task. The sword was not just a weapon, it was a symbol of Arthur's reign, a beacon of hope for the people. He couldn't bear to part with such a magnificent weapon. The thought of losing Excalibur was almost too much to bear, but Arthur insisted, his voice filled with a quiet strength. Bedivere finally obeyed, knowing that he must honor his king's final wish. With a heavy heart, he cast Excalibur into the lake. As the sword flew through the air, it seemed to shimmer with a light of its own. A hand reached out from the depths of the water, grasped the sword with a firm grip, and disappeared beneath the water, taking with it the last physical remnant of Arthur's reign. The lake returned to its serene state, as if nothing had happened, but the legend had been set in motion. Arthur was then taken to the mystical island of Avalon. It was said to be a place of healing, a sanctuary where he could recover from his wounds. There he would rest, waiting for the time when he would be needed once more. When Britain needed him most, when the land was in dire peril, Arthur would rise again. The promise of his return gave hope to the people, a beacon of light in the darkest of times. The legend of King Arthur lived on, growing with each retelling. It became a story of bravery, honor, and the mystical forces that bind us all. It was a reminder of the power of hope and the enduring strength of the human spirit. A story of bravery, honor, and the mystical. The knights who followed in Arthur's footsteps carried his legacy forward, fighting for justice and the greater good. They were inspired by his example, driven by the same ideals that had guided their king, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, hope never truly dies. Arthur would return. One day, the legend promised that he would come back when the world needed him most, a savior in times of great need. When the world needed him most, Arthur would rise again, leading his people to victory and restoring peace to the land. The legend of King Arthur endures, a timeless tale of courage, honor, and the unbreakable bond between a king and his people.